welcome everybody. Episode 5 of All Things Nerdy with Nate and Joe. We have a very special guest joining us today out in the wilderness, which is so fitting for who she is and what she's talking about. It's pretty exciting. We're going to tackle some, birds, some D&D, a mix of things if we can get there, really just see where it goes. But super excited to have Carissa as a guest. Again, talking about D&D, some birds of prey. She also is working on her graduate degree in biology and things like that. So she's going to share a lot of knowledge with us, have a lot of fascinating, fun things to talk about and everything like that. My name is Nate. I'm one of the hosts of All Things Nerdy. Myself, I'm a super big nerd and all of that. Joe?
Yep. Joseph, co-host, also huge nerd. Love is super excited for this episode to talk about birds. But without further ado, Carissa, talk nerdy to us.
Yeah, so again, my name is Carissa, and I'm out here in Barataria Preserve because I was doing some water ecology, biology, chucking in the marsh boots and all that jazz. But I am definitely a bird nerd. I specifically do like birds of prey a little bit more. Little brown birds, if you ask me what they are, I will not know. And that is okay because they all look the same. I've been in the field of biology for almost a decade. So that is aging and lovely. But it's honestly been such a passion, and I'm super pumped to get back into not just teaching about animals, but learning more about them and the systems that they live in.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you said you don't, little brown birds aren't your favorite. You prefer birds of prey. Walk us through what exactly birds of prey is. I mean, I know I have a concept of it, right? But give us some of what are birds of prey.
Yeah, so the general baseline is that they'll have a sharp beak and talons, and you're not going to have a bird of prey that you find eating nuts. So like cardinals are a very picturesque bird with like a thick beak. They like to bite into more like nuts and seeds, but birds of prey, they eat meat. There's a lot of drama in biology sometimes. So depending who you talk to, vultures are kind of an interesting, like, are they a bird of prey? Are they not? Because they have a sharp beak to rip meat. They have sharp talons, but they don't actively hunt their food. They're scavengers. So some definitions specifically will be like birds of prey are hunters. They're designed to kill and eat. They're not murderers. They just need to get their food. But vultures look very similar. They kind of fit the bill, but they're not actively hunting. So generally birds of prey, you'll have that sharp beak and the talons as a good descriptor.
In your expert opinion, is a vulture a bird of prey or no?
feel like I've been...
For the record.
On the record.
We are recording this.
I know. I'm going to have to go back and learn how to technology and erase it, depending what happens. I feel like as I've learned more, I don't consider them a bird of prey. I think that vultures are amazing and they deserve their own category, which they mostly are. And I'm unsure what the fancy science word is for it. But since they don't actively hunt, and I think that it shouldn't only be your physical characteristics, but the behavioral aspect of it too. They're just so different from an eagle. But that being said, bald eagles will also pick up roadkill, but they hunt on their own. Sometimes bald eagles will steal fish specifically from other birds. So even though bald eagles will eat roadkill, they're still hunting. So it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your favorite bird of prey?
Definitely the osprey. So they're mostly black and white. Their underside has, on their wing shape, they have black markings as well. And they have a black mask across their face, similar to the classic football players putting on their little black marks. It's like built-in sunglasses because osprey eat only fish. They're very specific and they have a lot of adaptations for that. So you'll see that they kind of stop and flutter a little bit, and then they'll just dive straight down and they hook their feet at the last minute. So they don't fully dive into the water like other fish-eating birds, but they catch it with their feet. And they're just, you don't see them in human care that often. They can be rehabilitated, but for the most part, you can't they they can't be tamed, as Miley Cyrus put it, for the most part. And I think that really emphasizes just the beauty I see in them when they fly by. I'm always distracted. They just make my day better. They're the best bird.
How big do they get compared to like a bald eagle?
They are generally, like, their wingspan is generally a foot to 2 feet smaller than a bald eagle. So I saw Steph's message about a lot of osprey by New York, where she grew up, and also where I worked in Delaware was where there were breeding osprey, and there were bald eagles that would teach their young to steal the osprey's fish.
That's so cool.
And it was interesting, like, the behavior dynamic of, like, bald eagles rear their young, whereas the osprey, they'd like wait for their young to get big enough to fly, and then the mom and dad would migrate, and then the little baby would just be like, okay, where am I gonna go? So 2 very different styles, but they are definitely smaller than a bald eagle.
Okay, but still pretty big. It sounds
Yeah.
like.
Still pretty big, at least like anywhere from, I'd say, like 3 to 4.5 foot wingspan on average, that gives a lot of room, but
yeah,
they do.
Like,
Yeah.
That's like good size,
Yeah,
I would be
definitely.
terrified.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to come in after you. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
like if I
No.
put the osprey off and it started after me, I would just like fall over and be like, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And that's kind of the other funny thing, is they have all of these adaptations, but that's the species that I had the opportunity to tag, and you would put little tags around their little, like, baby ankles. And we would go up to the nest, and the parents would just fly off and soar over, and they would chirp and they would be loud, but they would never dive bomb you, which I appreciate.
That's terrifying. Just thinking about it. That's just terrifying.
Being up close with a raptor, especially if they're goofy, or like the red-tailed hawk I was very lucky to work with, you could tell when the season was changing, and she let us know that she was ready for more mice in her diet. And those behavior things that you pick up on, it's like, I'm bigger than you, but I'm afraid. If I didn't understand you, I would be terrified. But I think that's most of nature when it comes down to it.
Yeah, I don't understand birds, and it is in fact terrifying. Just thinking about it, it is terrifying.
Yeah.
So what is like one of the, like, most interesting experiences you've had with a bird of prey?
I think so. I worked at Audubon Zoo for a little bit, and the red-tailed hawk's name was Aurora, and people were very patient with teaching me to use her own glove, and the goal was to get her so she was comfortable going in and out of a crate, in a van, and then to schools and libraries and things like that, because my job was to go to the schools and libraries, and seeing the growth not only of, like, her training, but my comfort and, like, my training as well. I was still learning, so it is a type of training to get her to those places. And then it's similar anytime you have a relationship, like, if you have a dog, or you with Lou, if something is wrong with them, you're going to notice before anyone else does. And just the time that went into that. And Aurora and I were at a library program, and there was just this young girl that was so enthused, like super pumped about it. Aurora did great. She was just hanging out, throwing mice guts everywhere. And it was the perfect checkbox of, like, these were our goals, and we got here and we did it. And I miss that bird a lot, but that was definitely like a good, not necessarily wild moment. She had been hit by a car, so she couldn't go back into the wild, which is why she was an education ambassador.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go for it. Joe, quick question for the podcast. Would you say you have a dog?
Did you say me?
Yeah, you, Joe. Yeah, Carissa doesn't know. I don't know if the podcast knows about the amount of animals that you own. So let's start with a dog. Do you have a dog, Joe?
I have 3 dogs.
Woo!
How many animals do you have altogether, Joe?
I think 23. I would have to go through the list, and we might have to do like a whole episode on this specifically.
I think you should.
But there are 23 animals. They're all different kinds. 3 dogs and 3 cats are like the typical ones, but everything else is kind of crazy in there So that's why I was like, this person is the best person ever on the episode.
I would not say that, but thank you.
I'm on the
And then
far
you
side
show
of
up
that.
in nature.
And then I'm in the wild. Yeah.
I'm on the far side of that. No cats, no dogs, no animals. That's it. I got nothing.
Yeah.
Good enough for both.
But I mean, yeah,
So
that's good. There is like the freedom of not being an animal person for sure.
So is Aurora still at Audubon?
She is. I'm unsure exactly what different programmings have been happening because avian flu, like bird flu, had it spread very quickly, and the zoo does a great job of maintaining natural habitats. So there are a lot of wild birds that come in and out. So then it became the concern of avian flu being contracted by any of the birds in the departments. And because we've learned more, a lot of those restrictions have eased, but I'm unsure exactly where they lie or if she's going out just in general. Like, you might be able to catch her if she's just out for some enrichment.
Yeah.
Or they might still be behind the scenes just because the priority is to keep the animals safe.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense. Now, something that we do on this podcast a lot is talk about the accessibility, how to get into, how to start doing these types of things. I, as a newbie, would suggest everybody don't go out and grab an osprey or a hawk or an eagle, right?
Definitely not.
Don't be that person. So how would you suggest somebody, like, say they're passionate about this, say they watch this and they're like, Carissa's my hero and all that, and they're like, I want to be just like Carissa. How do they get into this field in order to get to work with birds of prey?
I think, and something that I've learned with a lot of the people I've had the privilege of meeting, is that it doesn't really matter where your background started. Sometimes just having the opportunity, if you can create the time to volunteer in places, that helps. But again, like, volunteering is a privilege. Not everyone has time to do that. Or you can help yourself learn and just support your passions. The Orleans Audubon Society has a few trips coming up where you can join them and you can meet people that are birding. You can get that hands-on experience if you're not as social and you don't like going out with a group of people you don't know to a place you've never been. eBird and Merlin are great birding apps. The one does calls, so you could actually figure out, like, oh, what am I listening to? So even if you're not good at spotting the birds, you can start to know what's around you. And even a cheap pair of binoculars can help, or even a cheap camera, something to help you zoom in. But if you want to start broad scale with the raptors, like, you don't always need the binoculars. They can just be helpful. But that is partly why I like them so much, is because when I forget my binoculars, I can still see them. So, and then you have your general, like, if I'm going for field work, like with the field work aspect of disc golf, it was like, stay hydrated, bring your water. I see that stuff. There are a lot of bird calls. But you don't even have to come into the park. I see at least 5 or 6 different species when I'm just walking around my neighborhood in New Orleans proper. So just starting to observe and be engaged can be a great way. And then social media has been a great way to find a lot of different pockets to learn more and get, if you have the time, the volunteer experiences, or if you make a change of life to, like, go back to school. And generally that can get you some more time as well.
Right. That makes sense. So I'm going to ask Steph's question. I don't know if you got one that you could do. Can we hear a call?
Ooh,
what do you got?
I'm trying to. So Aurora, the red-tailed hawk scream would always be, I don't know like how it's going to sound with my headphones in, but she would yell, or it's generally the noise that they use for bald eagles. So it's like and it's very piercing that comes through. But honestly, one of the ones I mimic most are crows, because they have their very simple one where they just go, and sometimes I'll catch them and they'll look back at me. They have that other, like, caw cackle that like, my throat doesn't do the right, like it stops too soon.
Oh, that's so good.
But I'm working on it.
That's so good.
This is great.
Yeah. I think part of why I don't like mockingbirds as much is because I am a mockingbird.
So Carson
Oh,
came
man.
in complimenting your bird sounds, which are on point, by the way. Saying incredible.
Yes,
Wow.
it is. Yeah, I used to do. We have a mutual friend, Stephanie and I, Elliot, and we used to do kookaburra calls to find one another more often than we do now. But there's this now. I'm just like bragging about it.
I want to
There's
hear
like
it.
a. It's just so
We just peaked. We just peaked.
I'm just like looking to make sure no one comes on this trail. Oh yeah, we did it. This is what degrees can get you.
My degrees did not give me bird sound.
Not at all. I feel like I missed out.
Yeah, it's but it's a good one to try to like if you're lost. It's a good way to be found.
That's very recognizable for sure.
Yeah.
The next time we all hang out, I don't know if I can do it, but that's going to be the call. Okay.
We'll have a bird call training session.
Episode 2, bird call training session.
Done.
Oh.
Yeah, my face just got hot. Okay.
Are there any more amazing bird call sounds that you want to share with us?
Like once I do the kookaburra, like I can't do another one. That's the peak.
Dude, that was on point. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I love birds and crows specifically. Oh yeah, crows are great. If you keep unsalted cashews and you try to they wouldn't really take them from your hand at first, but you shouldn't feed wild animals. But if you're gonna feed a crow, they really like the unsalted cashews, and they recognize people, so they'd start to realize that it is you that's like delivering for them. They're so smart.
Yeah, that's what
it's kind of spooky.
I've heard like crows are like insanely smart.
Yeah, and they'll have funerals for each other. Like they have with animals. There's kind of the divide of. The big word is anthropomorphizing, so trying not to look at them like they're humans, but also humans are animals. So wherever you fall on that line. But they have, like, if you're going to have a funeral, I would say that means you have some emotional and a concept of death, which is
that's
mind-blowing.
Yeah, because even as a human, right, we're going down a rabbit hole, but this is
now we're diving in.
Even as a human, your concept of death doesn't come early on, right? Like
no,
as a kid, like your grandma, grandpa, whoever, someone that you know, like you have a hard time conceptualizing.
Definitely.
So the fact that the crows are holding funerals, like that means that they have to have a degree of intelligence that is even surpasses that of what a young human would have, which is kind of terrifying. Yeah. Not even kind of.
Right.
It is.
It's terrifying. Or I think it's most of the like cockatoo parrot family. They've designated that they have the mind of a toddler. So like they need things to do. And if they don't get attention, they might destroy things. And it's not because they're bad birds. It's like you wouldn't leave your toddler unattended all day.
My conure agrees with all of that.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Steph hit us with a question a little bit earlier today, but we didn't get around to it. What birds are native to the New Orleans area are? Let's narrow it down a little bit because I'm sure there's one. What about like birds of prey or just like some common birds that people would know?
Yeah, so some of the most common birds of prey you'll see in the city, there are Cooper's hawks, which are a little bit smaller, gray, and if you see a bird like darting more so, and it looks like it has that sharp beak, it most likely will be a Cooper's hawk. They feed on other birds, so their hunting style is pretty specific. And then we're coming up on the time where Mississippi kites are coming in and nesting, and they'll nest everywhere, and you'll probably hear them. It is another call. They make like a little like screech. So once they start to nest and then once their babies start to grow, you'll hear that a lot. And then red-shouldered hawks, I've seen them nest along the streetcar lines on St. Charles, more in Uptown than like definitely Uptown. I don't know if I've seen them nest in like even towards the Garden District, but they'll come in and they sit tall. They generally have like a white chest, and if you get a good look, you can see the red patch on their shoulders. But once they come in, they spend a good amount of time like sitting on wires as well.
Okay.
Those would be the ones that I most commonly see. And bald eagles fly over all the time, which is weird to me. But they live like there's a bald eagle nest where 10 continues and then 310 splits over that cypress swamp.
Okay.
So they'll move from there. And then I don't know if I'm sure there are nests in New Orleans East. I just don't know if I've specifically seen them. So.
Okay. So a lot more than I expected. I thought there'd be like
and those are only the big birds.
Also, the way you describe the birds and like they're hunting, like the darting, I don't think I've ever had like a fear of birds, but now I feel like I will be like attacked by birds.
Well, the Cooper's hawks are smaller than like an osprey and an eagle for sure. So it's kind of less, honestly, if you're like, wow, that pigeon looks like it's darting through, it'd be like, oh, it's a Cooper's hawk. The Mississippi kites sometimes look like pigeons too.
So what you're saying is I wouldn't even see that attack coming. It's just going to get
you wouldn't.
That's what I'm hearing. Not that I shouldn't be worried. It should be the fact that I should always be worried.
Yeah, it's constant vigilance. Honestly, the only...
So kind of on this topic, like what is like a common misconception that people have about birds that you could like debunk?
I think, and this one came out a lot during the height of COVID, is that you have to go somewhere to see them. Whereas there are a lot of small birds and even the bigger birds that just like they're in the city and you never know when you might look up and see the birds that are migrating fly over. So I think there's just or if you don't have a bird feeder or binoculars, like there are still ways to see and appreciate what is around you. They're not as hidden as I think I think that's a misconception, is that like, oh, I have to go birding to see birds. And it's like, no, you could just walk outside. The monk parakeets are a good one because they're exotic. So they're not from New Orleans, but they're not destroying any particular habitat, so they're just kind of here. And they're the green ones. They're very loud, and you see them. I've just started to see more and more in mid-city too, but they have quite a few nests along Uptown. So yeah, you can just walk outside and you can find some. I believe in you.
Chris, I don't know if I ever told you this story.
Oh boy.
So I'm good friends with Jorge, and I was on Facebook one day, and there was somebody posted that there was a hawk that looked a bird. It was talons. I think it was a hawk. Was like injured and like stuck in this area, and they were like, they tried to call animal control. Animal control told them they wouldn't come get it.
Yeah, no.
All kinds of things. So I was like, Jorge, let's go be fucking heroes. Let's go get this thing. Jorge is like, you're an idiot, but if he's like, if you want to do it, we can do it. He's like, grab a bunch of towels. And when I say a bunch, like grab enough that you think you're good and then grab more. Right?
Yes.
So I was like,
the number one thing is to be like, do you have a towel? Do you have a box? You're ready.
I was committed to going to save this hawk, and Jorge agreed, even against like all his knowledge and everything. He was like, no, like he shouldn't. But we were gonna go save it. Luckily, like by the time I got up to where like he's staying and everything, like someone had already got it and like saved it or whatever. So it saved me and Jorge, but we were bound and determined to go save this hawk thing.
Yeah.
Dude, we were cracking up the whole time. He's like, I don't understand how you get me into these things.
Like, why? But it is one of those where it's like, yeah, I could. When you're thinking about it, you're like, yeah, I could. I'm bigger than a bird. I could grab it. And then you get there and you're like, huh. Like, let me throw this. Can I throw a towel on it from a distance so it doesn't see me?
Yeah, like a net. Just
yeah.
So I had Jorge for the sole purpose of Jorge was going to be the one to get it. I'm just going to be there and take the glory of helping it, right? Like,
and then it's like he worked, at least when he was here, worked with big cats, so big carnivores. So then you have this concept of like, oh, I'm next to this Umber leopard every day, but like there's a bird over there and I don't think we should go get it.
Yep. We
Yeah.
got another great question from how can I train crows to give me things? Great question. I would like to know that as well.
Yeah. So honestly, it is up to, in my opinion, I'm sure that if you had a pet crow, you could, not that you should have a pet crow, you could train it to like bring you things, especially if it's like their nesting season. A lot of birds have displays, or gift giving is kind of common. But if you're just like trying to get in with the local crows, I would start with, there are other foods that are cheaper than unsalted cashews. So like maybe start low. And then if you see like a particular crow constantly comes to like wherever you place your food out, like then maybe go be like, oh, if it flies off but it's still there, be like, hey, like this is me, this is my face, and here's this treat that you like that I am giving you. And then if that would increase your chances of getting them to bring you things. You could also, like, if you don't want to feed wild animals, which you shouldn't, and you shouldn't give them pollution either, but they like things. They tend to like shiny things as well, like to put in their nest and almost decorate. So if you have something that you would give a baby that it wouldn't like choke on, or like maybe a cat to play with, but it's like shiny or pretty, you could just, tempt the crow and see if it likes that. And then when they associate you with a good thing, they might come back and like give you a gift as well. But it really just depends on the individual crow. You might just have one that's, doesn't want any friends.
Yeah. Offer it up as tribute, right? The shiny, please take this.
Yeah. Look what I gathered for you. Your humble human servant.
So what we've gathered is don't feed wild animals, don't keep wild animals as pets. But if you're one of those people who are like, fuck rules, right?
Yeah. There are so many times where it's like, oh no, you shouldn't, like, don't take things from parks. And I'm like, oh, but like, I'm a biologist. And it's like, no, that's really not. Or it's like, no, you shouldn't have a cheetah as a pet. And be like, but I could have a cheetah as a pet. It's like, no, it's not. I'm not better than anyone else. That still should be a solid no. But it's, your people feed other birds. So like, why shouldn't you cater to crows?
So
don't feed birds bread. Don't do it.
Don't feed birds bread. Big takeaway.
Yeah. I changed my other misconception. This is the one. Don't give them bread.
Do not feed birds bread. So my guy, J Boogie Cox, coming in, carrier pigeons versus the U.S. Postal Service.
Ooh.
Who wins?
I feel like this one's after my heart because I actually write physical letters to people. So I do have an appreciation for the Postal Service, but if I could get a carrier pigeon, I would. Or like a carrier falcon or owl post, I would trade in the U.S. Post Service. So sorry for anyone that works for USPS. I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you for taking my letters. But if you were an owl, that would be great.
Especially like a snowy owl. Maybe
yeah. Yeah, I don't think that's too much to ask for.
On the subject, but off the subject, I also want to say, like, the mail thing. When I was a kid, I loved mail. I absolutely loved it. I wish somebody would write me letters. That is so cool, right? Like, because now all I get is bills, and I hate it. Like the mail.
Yeah, no, it's sad.
You're not my friend. I prefer Amazon, right? I want Amazon to slide in. But I see the mail person coming. I'm like, oh, damn you. What am I paying for today?
Right. It's like, no, I don't want another speeding ticket from a camera.
That's a whole different thing.
Yeah. Oh, I'll get some international stamps and then we can become pen pals.
Yes, I'm good with that.
Perfect.
Yeah, we got another one. J Boogie Cox. How will the bird flu affect wild species of birds? He's bringing it in with the real question.
Yeah, right. They don't. We have cares. So one of the big things is that it's almost, I don't want to say one of the big things. Something that I heard it phrased that made sense to me was almost like a group of people getting pneumonia, and where some will recover and be fine, Others might have it for longer. That might specifically kill a person, or you might have pneumonia and then something else makes you sick. So wild ducks have been some of the highest like fatalities from bird flu because they're in a water source, which helps it spread, and then they're in a big flock. So it's not as common in birds that tend not to hang out with other birds, but in your flocked species, it has kind of increased. And then I don't know if scientists fully understand yet, like, okay, so this population had bird flu, but most of them recovered, but maybe they travel on their migration route, they go to this lake, and this lake has been polluted by people, and where normally they would healthily recover from that pollution is what takes them down because they were previously weakened. So there are a lot of connections and impacts, but I don't have a specific number for like how many birds have been killed by bird flu. Just that since it had spread so much, and you could kind of see it, like it was kind of similar to the COVID map where you just like watched it come through and you could kind of see it, and you can't keep wild species from migrating. Yep. Just like you can't always keep humans from leaving their homes. So it definitely will probably keep spreading for a bit. And if we have warmer temperatures, that might also play a role. If we have a big freeze, that could be something that helps or hinders those bird populations. I don't know if that really answered the question.
So how would you curb something like that, right? Like you can't stop them from migrating. You can't separate them clearly because like humans are like, oh, go to your house and don't leave for 6 months. Right. So how do you stop that?
Like if you were close enough and the population was small enough where like you could watch and be like, oh, I know that individual is sick, and you went to try to remove it, you could do that, but that only works in specific places. And there's, again, more like biology drama of antibiotics and antibiotic resistance in different systems. And then like you can't just give these things to wild animals. So whereas like places like the zoo might have access to these different things. So if one of their birds did get it and get sick, they're more likely to recover. You also like, who's going to pay for a whole flock of wild ducks to get treatment? Bird masks. That's what we need. They make like the masks where people can still play musical instruments. So like the duck can still filter feed, but then it's on. Yeah, I don't think there really is a solution besides humans trying to be more mindful of what we're putting out into the environment to like combat the other things that we can control.
Yeah. I will say, so I live in New Orleans as well for the podcast people. Carissa, you know that. Joe, you know that.
Mm-hmm.
I will say one of my biggest issues with this place is how willy-nilly people just chunk stuff out. It is the most frustrating thing. And I'm sure Steph is probably like, I'm so tired of hearing about, but I legitimately get like angry when people just like are right in front of me. I'm that person, like, I want to get out of my car and throw it back into your car, you know?
Yeah.
I support that.
To me, it's just a sign of disrespect for the people around you too. To be like, I wouldn't come throw my trash in your front yard, and this area is like it's our collective yard. It's our mother. Like you keep it in your car until you get to a trash can, and even then, that's where our trash goes. And this concept of recycling, and it's not. If you do recycle and you are mindful, thank you. You're doing a great job. But like we need to just try not to have plastic in general. Like we need to start moving forward to the next step.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Joe, you have any other questions or anything?
No, I mean, I have several, but we are running over on time. I want to be respectful of your time, so maybe we can get you back on here.
Yeah, just let me know.
Can you leave us with another bird call?
Ooh, I'm trying to think what else I talked about.
We could do a repeat.
I could. The kookaburra is such a good one. So yeah, yeah. All right, let me prep my throat. Got it.
J Boogie
Okay.
just pissed with
Also a good one.
yeah.
I don't know if you can hear it, but love is going wild now, screeching. So,
Oh, sweetie.
but thank you so much for coming here, spending time with us, and
Yeah,
hope
thanks
to
for
have you
having
back.
me.
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Yeah, no, this